Ray, when I ask you to name the first town that comes to mind when you think of witch trials in New England, you would say...
No question, Salem, Massachusetts.
Exactly.
All right, so why are we here in the middle of downtown Hartford, Connecticut, and not Salem, standing in front of this old State House building?
Because this is the site of New England's first witch trial and execution. I'm Jeff Belanger.
And I'm Ray Auger, and welcome to episode 49 of the New England Legends podcast. If you give us about 10 minutes, we'll give you something strange to talk about today.
We're on a mission to chronicle every legend in New England 1 week and one story at a time. And we can't do that without the help of legendary listeners like you.
That's right.
You can help us a bunch by sharing this podcast with your friends, posting a review on iTunes and other podcast services, by joining our super secret Facebook group, or by calling or texting our legend line at 617-444-9683.
And you can also become a patron and get exclusive access to bonus episodes at patreon.com/New England Legends. All right, Jeff, I've heard all about the Salem witch trials over and over and over again. We all know those stories.
Of course.
But I've never heard of the Hartford trials. How did I miss this one?
Ray, I think we all missed this one, and I grew up in Connecticut. But it turns out the first person executed in New England for witchcraft was Alse Young. And it happened right about here where we're standing back on May 26th, 1647. We're talking about a time before the old State House was even built, back when Hartford's meeting house stood on these same grounds.
All right, now if my math is right, 1647, that's 45 years before Salem.
I know, and the worst part of this is that Alse Young wasn't the only person executed for witchcraft here in Hartford.
Wow, this is crazy, but let's start from the beginning.
Well, actually, I'd like to start at the end on this story.
What?
But if you've been watching the New England Legends television series on Amazon Prime and PBS...
Of course, yes.
Of course you have. This is a story we covered in episode 6 of the TV series. And it all began when I stumbled across a newspaper article from a few years ago about a man named Tony Grigo who was trying to raise funds to erect a witch memorial here in front of the old State House building in Hartford. But not just a memorial, Grigo is seeking justice for those wrongfully convicted. He wants an official pardon.
Do you mean there were enough people executed for witchcraft in Hartford to warrant an entire memorial?
Well, you know, in fairness, even one execution is too many and warrants a memorial. But when it comes to Connecticut, there were actually 11 people executed in this state, and most of them lost their lives right here.
11?
11. All of them executed between 1647 and 1662. Here's the list.
All right, I do think it's important that we say the names here.
I
Thank
agree.
you.
I agree.
All right, there was Alse Young of Windsor, who we already mentioned, Mary Johnson of Wethersfield, John and Joan Carrington of Wethersfield, Goodwife Knapp of Fairfield, Goodwife Bassett of Stratford, Lydia Gilbert of Windsor, Mary Sanford of Hartford, Nathaniel and Rebecca Greensmith of Hartford, and Mary Barnes of Farmington.
Let that sink in. 11 people executed for witchcraft in Connecticut decades before the Salem witch trials. There were also 34 indictments, but thankfully those people were not executed.
Jeff, how did we never hear about this before?
Because there was a cover-up, Ray, a good old-fashioned effort to hide the facts that would make a state and its government feel ashamed. You know, maybe now is a good time to go back to the beginning?
Yeah, that's a good idea. Let's do that. Now, for this story, the beginning is roughly 1620 when the Mayflower arrives in Plymouth, Massachusetts.
Of course.
These pilgrims find rough conditions here in New England, and they only survive because some of the native people took pity on them and taught them how to live here. But soon, more Europeans show up.
Don't they always? And they're literally coming over by the boatload. And these folks need land and resources and infrastructure. Villages quickly grow into towns. The earliest seeds of cities start to form. And the native people who lived here before suddenly find themselves being pushed out. And that leads to war.
In May of 1637, Captain John Mason attacks the Pequots in the area of modern-day Mystic, Connecticut. This is only the first of many battles and wars that would come in the following decades.
Right.
And when you live around war all the time, you're going to be on edge.
Yeah.
You had colonial villages being attacked by Native Americans and colonial militia attacking Native Americans.
And when you're at war, it's important to tell your own people that God is on your side
right.
and you're fighting for the righteous cause.
Yeah.
And at the same time, the Native Americans were being vilified by the colonists as savages, or worse, that they were in league with the devil.
So the devil isn't some concept or idea to the early colonists. He's
Right.
a real presence who was responsible for the murder of women, children, and whole families.
It's a dark time, Ray, a frightening time, and a time when accusing someone of being in league with the devil could cost them their lives.
All right, Jeff, who was Alse Young?
Well, for that, I think we should hop in the car and head up north just about 8 miles to Alice's hometown of Windsor, Connecticut.
Shotgun. Well, this is nice. Windsor is a quaint New England town. What are we looking for here?
Not what, but who? Hey, there's the woman we're here to meet.
My name is Beth Caruso. I'm the author of One of Windsor, the untold story of America's first witch hanging.
Beth's an authority on the Connecticut witch trials.
Okay, Beth, how come people know so much about the Salem witch trials, but almost nothing about Connecticut?
Well, people don't know about the Connecticut witch trials as much because we don't have the plethora of records that they had in Salem. In 1799, Benjamin Trumbull said, "We don't have the stain of witchcraft here in Connecticut." But unbeknownst to him, there were records that would be found much later, and of course many are missing.
Benjamin Trumbull was an historian and preacher who lived from 1735 to 1820, and he published a book called The Complete History of Connecticut from 1630 till 1713.
With no mention of the witch trials, I'm guessing maybe his book shouldn't have that title.
No, maybe not. Or maybe he didn't know because by the time he published the book in the late 1790s, the official records were already long gone. I have my suspicions why, but we'll get back to that.
All right. Beth, what do we know about Alse Young?
Well, we know that she was hanged on May the 26th, 1647. She was arraigned and hanged for a witch in Hartford. Other than that, we make assumptions about her. There was a man named John Young who lived on a street called Backer Row in the town of Windsor. The only Young, so it's assumed that she was the wife of John Young. Later there appeared a woman by the name of Alse Young Beeman in Springfield, who was also accused of witchcraft several years later. However, she had a son who stood up for her. She got accused when she was a widow, so she did not hang. But people assume that she was the daughter of Alse Young, probably the only child.
Oh, wow. So witch accusations run in the Young family.
It sounds like it does. In the 1950s, the Commonwealth of Massachusetts finally issued an official apology for the atrocities committed during the Salem witch trials in 1692.
Which is interesting considering in 1692 we were technically England.
That's right. And the apology happened around this time because playwright Arthur Miller had recently published The Crucible about the Salem witch trials. It was a hit play and book, and it brought a lot of attention to a piece of history that, though it was well documented, it was kind of slipping into obscurity. But this effort by Massachusetts is more ceremonial than anything else. But at least it's a public acknowledgement and apology.
I get that. So I'm guessing Connecticut hasn't done the same.
They haven't. Tony Grigo, who we mentioned earlier, reached out to the governor's office asking for some kind of proclamation and was told Connecticut didn't even have its charter back then, so there's nothing that they could do. He even wrote a letter to the Queen of England asking for a royal pardon because Connecticut, of course, was a British territory back then.
Right. And did Tony hear anything back from England?
He actually did.
Wow.
I've seen the letter. The Queen's office basically said if British law wasn't followed correctly, then she does have the ability to issue some kind of posthumous pardon, but he'd need to send over all of the court records.
And those court records are long gone, I'm guessing?
Exactly. Beth Caruso's been working with Tony both to help get these official pardons and to get a memorial built in Hartford.
This just seems like insult to injury at this point. No acknowledgement, no apology, no memorial.
Well, there's been one victory worth noting. I'll let Beth explain.
In the town of Windsor, on February the 6th, 2017, we were lucky enough to have a mayor, Donald Trinks, who was very supportive. Also, we got together with the First Church of Windsor, which incidentally was the same church that would have accused Alse Young and been behind her hanging. But the two ministers in modern days, Reverend Nicole Yonkman and Reverend Shar Corbett, decided to get behind this movement. They felt like their church had participated in an injustice, and so they came to town hall with us on February the 6th, 2017, and unanimously 9-0, the town council in Windsor, led by the mayor, declared that the names of Alse Young and Lydia Gilbert were cleared.
Wow, it took until February of 2017 to finally get this done.
I know.
I mean, it's great Alse Young and Lydia Gilbert's names are officially cleared, but that's a real long time to wait. And what about the other 9 who were executed in Connecticut?
Well, now Tony and Beth and their group have some kind of template for other towns to follow. Their plan is to take Windsor's proclamation to other municipalities and show them what needs to be done.
I've seen a copy of that proclamation, and you can see it on our website, too, at OurNewEnglandLegends.com. Just click on episode 49. The part that boggles my mind, Jeff, is what could this have cost the town of Windsor to do?
Maybe $1 or $2 for that fancy paper?
Right? It doesn't cost taxpayers anything.
Right.
It's just the right thing to do when the governor won't, and the Queen of England can't.
In my experience, it's never too late to make an effort to right a wrong.
All right, how did all this get covered up?
In fairness, I have to say this is my own speculation here. The reason we know about the 11 executed is because family letters of the victims mention what happened, other journals and things like that. But as for official court records, we really have none.
All right, so who covered it up?
I don't know who, but I can guess when and why.
All right, let me hear it.
My guess is by the autumn of 1692, the Salem witch trials made news across New England. Spectral evidence was about to be banned, and everyone looked at Salem as the ultimate miscarriage of justice. I picture some higher-ups in Connecticut scratching their heads and saying, "Oh man, that stuff went down here too. Let's just make this go away."
Well, yeah, but I'm sure they used some kind of horse-drawn paper shredder back then, not a modern one.
No, they must have. When we were in Hartford earlier, did you notice the statue on top of the old State House building?
Yeah, the golden statue of Justice blindfolded and holding the scales?
Right, that's the one. It seems to me when it comes to witch trials that justice may be blind, but that doesn't mean it's not prejudice. I think we should give Beth Caruso the last word.
These witch trials remind us that we need to treat each other with respect and justice and get all the information and not make assumptions about other people. Because if we continue to do that, we can go to very dark places. It is a part of human nature.
If you want to learn more about Tony and Beth's efforts to build a memorial to the 11 people executed for witchcraft in Connecticut, go to our website at OurNewEnglandLegends.com and click on episode 49. We have all the links there.
It's so important we share these legends with others because history has a horrible way of repeating itself. I mean, witch trials happen in our town halls, our neighborhood associations, our PTA meetings, and in our cliques every single day. Labels can be so dangerous.
I agree. We did get a text on our legend line this week.
Good.
617-444-9683. Just a reminder that you can leave us a voicemail there with your own story or feedback, or you can text us anytime.
Anytime.
Yeah, we got a text this week from the 203 area code. That's Connecticut.
Right.
And it says, "Hey guys, I love your show.
Thank you.
I'd be really interested in doing some voice acting for you. Thanks for the content."
Oh, man. Ray, any chance that's James Earl Jones' phone number? Because
you imagine?
That would be amazing.
Right? It'd be incredible, though it might put us out of a job, I'm thinking.
Good point.
How can we compare to the voice of Darth Vader?
Yeah, no, you're right. Good point. Well, thank you all you legendary listeners for listening this week. Our theme music is by John Judd.
And until next time, remember, the bazaar is closer than you think.